Oh, snap.
There we go.
Oh, why?
I think it might be the Android, bro. My buddy got an iPhone, so I think it might be the Android.
Hey, man. That's what's up. Now I'm excited. I thought we was going to have to skip over you, man.
No, I hope not, man. I hope not.
All right. That's awesome. Appreciate you hopping on, man. Did you hear my question? Yes.
Yeah, I heard your question. Yeah.
All right. Continue. Yeah. For the people that's just joining, I asked them, why is it important for not only us, but our white brothers and sisters to be educated on our history of this nation and what's going on right now?
So my answer to that is it's extremely important to be educated because we need to get factual information to change our perceptions. Right now, we're basing decisions, we're basing our emotions strictly off of what we see. And for a lot of people who maybe I've encountered for myself or who may not get the message about what's going on right now is they've never been exposed to it. They've never been educated about it. The school system, as we know, only hits on African-American history for a very small period of time. And what they do teach you is very skewed. It's skewed from the sense of the United States view and not the rest of the world view. You ask people from other countries, their view on African-Americans, they'd be like that. The U.S. treat you like piss poor, and they didn't actually tell you the truth about Christopher Columbus. They didn't tell you the truth about all these other people who've oppressed, other minorities. But for some reason here in the United States, we get a very, very snippet view of our history. And for myself, I had to re-educate myself on Black and African-American history because for so long, I did base my perceptions based off of what I saw. Firsthand, I live in a rural, I wouldn't say rural, I live in a primarily white community, let's just be honest. So I don't face some of the same things as strictly as, per se, you go into South Tampa or you go into different parts of the United States where it's more prevalent. And so what I've been doing is re-educating myself so I can educate other people, because I've maybe faced these things firsthand, but if they don't see it on a consistent basis, they're not learning about it on a consistent basis, how can you expect their mindsets to change or their perceptions to change?
Right.
So education is just the first key to it, I believe.
That's the first key. Exactly. And like you said, I always talk about that with a couple of my friends, like the textbooks back in high school, U.S. history. Like you said, it's very skewed. And the people that they do praise, they don't tell you the full story on who they are, like Thomas Jefferson and all these people. They don't tell you how many slaves they owned and, what they didn't want passed and why, things like that. So we really do need to be educated as well as our white brothers and sisters.
And something to add to that is, a portion of the education piece is people they forgot that this has been an ongoing issue. The systemic racism, institutional racism hasn't gone away. We've just shied away from shedding light to it. And now with this recent thing, rest in peace, George, it's come back to light. So now we need that re-education piece. You need to understand that this hasn't gone anywhere. This has been prevalent since 1700s, the 1900s, Jim Crow laws, to allowing, blacks to vote, to now, segregation. And now we're in the 21st century where it's now starting to be shed light on again because now we have a voice. Prior to this, we didn't have a voice.
Right.
Now we have a voice and we have telephones, we have cameras, we have Instagram, Twitter, we have all types of things that can give us a piece of information. But at the end of the day, you need to understand the root cause of it in order to fix it.
That's good, bro. We've been, in many ways, like you said, using our voice, speaking out, protesting, marching, crying, and even in living in fear at times over these years, what happens. It's pretty tiring, bro. We've heard our brothers and sisters cry out. You see in the posts, you've seen everybody saying how tired we are. And that's real. All week and last week, I felt tired. Just basically. And Bree talked about it, my first guest. She mentioned that it is our responsibility to teach people that don't look like us and teach each other. But that's tiring, too. I get tired of telling people how I feel or how this affects me. I get tired of educating people. So we've just been tired of this happening. We've been tired of having to constantly go through the same cycle, right?
What I say then is if we don't, who else will?
Right.
Who's going to take that burden or that token and run with it? Nobody else will. And you know that because nobody else has up until the Black Lives Matter movement, or we've had protests and riots, but they fell on deaf ears. So it's our turn as a community, as African Americans, as minorities and everything, to start voicing. We have to have these tough conversations. These ain't easy conversations to have, but it's necessary.
And now, like you said, and now we actually see a lot of our. I don't want it to make it seem like it's just us that have to carry the load, but we do see people standing up with us. We see a lot of our white brothers and sisters speaking out and standing up. Many have said they hear our cry. You know, many have said we see you, and when we see and hear those kind of statements, how does that make you feel to know that a good amount of the white, I would say. At this point, from what I see, yeah, I'll just keep it as good. I don't want to say large because it's a lot of people out there. But a good amount of the white community and our brothers and sisters are saying they hear our cry. They see that we're tired. They're standing with us. How does that make you feel?
Man, it is refreshing, to say the least. It's refreshing because for so long, I know a lot of us have suppressed our emotions, including myself. I suppressed my voice because it never felt like I had an opportunity to voice. And now that I have somebody else voicing with me, it's refreshing. It makes you feel like we're getting somewhere. But with that being said, you have to think what's next. I'm always a person of action. Like I need to, if I'm feeling some type of way, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling any type of way, especially concerning, what's going on now. I've been in my feelings heavy. I woke up some days crying. And I couldn't even explain, like, God, this is so heavy on my heart that people are starting to see it now. What's the next thing we do? What type of action do we take? So what I've been doing firsthand, like your friend Bree said, is we got to look in our own backyards. I had to have these conversations with my friends. I know they stand with me, but at the same time, I need you to be vocal enough to your classmates. I need you to be vocal to your family members. I need you to be vocal to your parents, your loved ones, people who, at the end of the day, have helped shape your perception. So what now is we have to continue moving forward. And one of the things I've done that I noticed, or that I've done individually, was I go to a medical school. I'm getting my doctorate in occupational therapy, and I just recognized that there was a deficit of African Americans in the healthcare realm as a whole. And it's something that honestly, I never felt the need to speak about it until I got to medical school. And because, I was around people who supported me, but in the healthcare realm, they're not as supportive sometimes. And you see that representative of the numbers who are there, primarily white and doctors, in my field specifically, it's 85% Caucasian females. And physical therapists is 67% Caucasian male and females. So then you ask yourself, well, how do we fix this? You have to start to change the mindset. And so what I've done now is create a petition to create more diversity. It's not that we want to take away from the opportunities of others, but we want to ensure that everybody's getting an equal opportunity to get to that same seat that they're sitting in. And oftentimes you have to be intentional about doing so. And so by signing the petition or, by creating change in your own life, you have to be very, very intentional about what you're doing. And you have to be strategic, because if you're not, then it's going to fall on deaf ears and we're going to be in the same place we were 40, 50 years ago instead of to continue to progress forward. So I asked the people next to me, I asked my classmates, I said, I don't need you to just stand with me. I need you to push this initiative, because I can't do this by myself. It can't just be the 10 black people who are at my school. Right. That we're not going to get anywhere. So I need you to be actionable. I need you to push this out, email it to deans. I need you to be very intentional about doing this, because we need change.
That's so good, bro. I felt what you said earlier, because you said it's a relief, right? You said it was a relief to have people finally speaking out with us and seeing the distress that we've been under, right? But you said it was a relief because before you felt like you couldn't speak out. Is that what you said?
Yes, sir, I did.
Why did you say before you couldn't speak out?
Being an African-American male, and a large one at that, I've always had to, my parents taught me, there are going to be situations that you have to hold your tongue. There are going to be situations that you're put in that you may not be able to voice. There are going to be, having police brutality. I can't be treated I haven't been treated the same as some of my counterparts. So I suppressed those feelings, those emotions. I suppressed speaking out against it because I didn't feel like, if I were to do it, people were going to understand where I was coming from. And I didn't feel like they could relate or even empathize because truly they couldn't put themselves in my position. You didn't get guns drawn on you by 5 cops. I did. So how can I expect you to relate to me? So therefore, I have to suppress these feelings. And that was probably the toughest part of going through all this, is like unraveling all that stuff that I've gone through over the years. I worked in the bank prior to this. I would get comments, "Oh, are you the security guard?" No, sir. I'm the man who's about to educate you financially on what to do with your money, or on ways to improve yourself so you're more efficient, or to help your children so they don't go in the same cycles that, your family has gone in for years. And so I had to suppress them for so long, and I didn't know who to talk to. I couldn't talk to my manager. He was, unfortunately, he was a great man. He taught me a lot of things, and I appreciate him, but he couldn't relate. What was he going to do? What were my teachers going to do? And now, since, everybody's on the same page collectively trying to better them, to push forward this initiative of Black Lives Matter and equality, this is, I feel like, the opportune time to talk about it.
We feel a little more comfortable now because we got some backing on him.
Right.
I 100% feel that. It's like I always had a voice, but I couldn't use it because you were by yourself. And like you said, I don't think that you're going to empathize with me. You might just make an excuse or tell me, "Oh, it's not the way you think it is." So in that case, we might as well just be quiet, and go.
Right.
Keep it all inside, but now we feel like we can let loose. That's really good. I wanted to ask you that because I saw some of your Instagram posts that have been very good on your story.
Appreciate that.
I saw the story of the other guy, the large gentleman. I saw that, so I thought you would kind of go in that direction, and you did. We have started to take action in many ways, and we'll continue to, right?
Yeah.
But the goal is not to be at war with police. It's not to be fighting the police. It's not to be at war with white America. But the ultimate goal is for reconciliation. What would that look like to you?
For myself, reconciliation would mean that you continue to take my opinion seriously. You continue to take my voice seriously. Because it's easy to discount me because I am the only African American doing it, or there are, few of us who are trying to do it. But by putting, making things, I go back to the point again of being intentional. Reconciliation means that if you see that a large percentage of the Fortune 500 companies are ran by white individuals, okay, then be intentional about changing it. That's reconciling. Be intentional about putting these people in positions of power. For systemically, you haven't done that. In the past, you haven't done that. You've been very intentional about not doing it, in fact. There's a term called glass ceilings, meaning that there's an effect that for women and for minorities of color, you can only hit so high in your company. And why? Because systematically, they've created it so you fail, or so people, even my counterparts who may be white, my same age, same education, they're set up to succeed. So now going forward, reconciliation for me looks like I want fair representation in my school. I shouldn't be able to count all the Black people in my school on 2 hands, including faculty, including staff. That's reconciling, in my opinion.
That's good. I'm right there with you, bro. I want to talk about this too, because this has been, when you see the murders that happen, you see our rights being violated every day, especially stuff that's not on camera. We see all of that, right? And we hear about it.
Right.
I believe we need to fight, stand up, and exercise all of our rights, right? And exercising your Second Amendment, your Second Amendment right is something that I've watched you do. I see that you take a liking to that specific right, which is awesome, and I'm starting to do so myself. That's the right to bear arms. Why is that important to you?
I believe that's important to me because constitutionally it's been given to everyone. And for myself, we live in a very uneasy world. You have mass shootings, you have just one-off situations that you feel like you would never come across. And I don't want to be sat in a position where I don't have the opportunity to defend myself or to defend those around me. And that's why I carry. And I always carry. You know, people ask me, well, you know, people who've never met me, well, why do you feel the need to carry a gun? For my own safety, but with that comes responsibility. In my hand, literally, Jesus forgive me, is the power of life and death. I have the opportunity to take your life if I feel threatened. But that is such a great responsibility. I think everybody should have the opportunity, but doesn't mean everybody should take that. Because put a gun in the wrong person's hands, who Lord knows what happens.
Right.
But I would continue to stress the need for regulation of it. You know, there are some systematic loopholes, especially in Florida, that give opportunities for people who may have had mental health issues to have guns. I don't necessarily think that's the safest route to go, given a history. You know, I don't sometimes, you know, and those are very, you know, finite situations where a lot can happen, what they consider mental health. I understand that. But I believe at the end of the day, everybody should be given that right, because I want to protect mine as much as you do. And I want to protect those around me, even the ones I don't know.
That's true, man. And a lot of our brothers and sisters could be alive if they were there to protect and had that to protect themselves as well.
That comes with education too. You know, I know having a gun in my car, I don't have to profess it to an officer, but being smart enough, if you think that officer is a little jumpy, sir, there's a gun in my car. I want you to know that. I want to be intentional and straightforward with you, because look how it could be perceived if they come across that weapon in your car. Oh, shoot, he's threatening. Oh, man, I don't even want to give you that impression. Mm-hmm. So though we don't have to, you should as a best practice. But that comes with education. That comes with, you have to be very level-headed. There's some situations that you may think you need a gun in, but at the end of the day, you got to keep that bad boy tucked unless you're truly in danger. Unless somebody pulls a gun on you, or you can't just be doing that out of blind fury.
Right. He cut me off. Let me flash my strap. Like, nah.
Right. Nah. Even flashing, you going to jail, big fella.
Yeah.
But I know security. I'm like, oh, I'm good. Anything pop off, I'm straight.
That's good, bro. Hey, man, I appreciate you hopping on. You dropped a lot of knowledge. Matter of fact, people had some questions. So before you go, I want to address these. My sister's Grantasia, she said, what encouragement can they give to us as minorities to start going about starting these conversations?
What encouragement? At the end of the day, do you want this to be just a right now 2020 issue or a conversation, or do you want your kids to live in a world that they understand that they no longer have to be suppressed? They no longer have to suppress their feelings, their emotions about being African American or being a minority. So I encourage you to have these tough conversations, because at the end of the day, it does you no justice not to.
Right. Yeah, there was another one. My friend Q, he said, where can we sign the petition that you're talking about?
So that petition that I created, unfortunately, is only for my student body. And we did that intentionally because, you know, sometimes you get the voice of everybody else and they may discredit it. They're like, well, no, it's just everybody else saying that. That's actually not true. That's not how people feel. You know, so we created it just for our student body so they can voice and say, you know, it's a small school. It's about 1,500 all total.
What's the name of the school? I got some praying people on here. We can at least pray for it.
I appreciate that. Toro University, Nevada.
One more time?
Toro University, Nevada. TUN, Nevada.
Toro University, Nevada.
Yeah. TORO, Nevada.
I got one other question here. On the contrary, this is what Monique asked this. Do you think telling an officer you have a gun in the car could potentially intensify the interaction? I think it does, but I think it's the risk that you have to go with. But go ahead.
Oh, certainly it can, but that's up to you when and if you tell them. Now, if I feel like this is just an everyday encounter, you know, the cop is not mistreating me, he's not doing anything, then I'm going to exercise my right not to discuss it with him. But if I feel like he or she, may be a little testy, or they may be asking some out of line questions, I'm going to let them know up front, because I don't want that surprise. You know, I don't want that. I want them to be well aware. So, and that's also accountability. by me telling you this, you have to take a different stance as an officer because you actually have the training on how to deal with this.
Right. That's very good, bro. Again, man, I appreciate you hopping on. I appreciate you hopping on, bro, and sharing all this knowledge with us. I definitely got to have you in person as a guest. But in the meantime, I appreciate you, man. Any last words that you want to give out to our viewers?
I would just say, you know, I'm on my friend's page, actually, so I'll just address everybody. Just be willing to have these open conversations. It's not something that I would have ever imagined I would have to go through. And be empathetic that though you may not have experienced any of these things firsthand, as your friend, as somebody who loves you regardless if I met you or not, it's still happening. So be open and be willing just to simply have the conversation. I'm not saying I got to change your mind. I'm not saying you are going to change your mind. But be open enough to receive the information.
That's good. Hey, bro. Appreciate you, man. I'm going to hit you up very soon. But until then, man, be easy, be safe. Thank you again.
All right, dog. Appreciate you.
All right. This is such a good dialogue. These are topics that we just need to talk about. I wish, honestly, guys, I wanted to have some of my Caucasian friends on here, but I didn't get a chance to. That's something that we can definitely do too, because that's something that has to be done. Monique, my next guest, is coming on. This is my last and final guest for this evening. Then y'all can go back and do what y'all was doing, man. But I really appreciate y'all tuning in and just being a part of this discussion. Let's keep it going. Monique.
I made it. Johnny, what's up?
What's up? How you doing?
You know, as good as I can be. I'm blessed. I can't complain. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm just glad that you're here. I'm glad we have this platform to share. And before we even get started, I would just like you to introduce yourself, tell a little bit about what you do and who you are to our guests, to our viewers.
Sure, yeah. So my name is Monique Welch. I am officially an engagement producer at the Tampa Bay Times. So I'm basically responsible for, I'm on the front lines of disseminating our information on all of our platforms, whether it's our mobile app, newsletters, social media. And then I also get out and cover events. So I report on different events within the community. As you know, I was out at one of the protests. But other than that, when there's not like major events going on, I typically go to a lot of weekend events, concerts, things like that, and just write about it or I talk about it on social media.
That's awesome. So y'all see Monique's been using her voice. Hey, a lot of shout outs on your makeup. So everybody's shouting you out.
Oh, are they? Thank you guys.
Looking great. That's awesome. I want to first of all, I think what you, like the work you're doing and your colleagues, I think is great work. I think it's very needed. How important do you see your role as a local journalist, given the current events that are taking place, and why?
Oh, man, yeah, it's really important. I can't stress it enough. One, because even before this has happened and the world has kind of taken this, everything that's going on right now with the pandemic and the protests, has definitely changed the game of journalism. But even before that, we've had this responsibility to kind of hold the powerful accountable, right? And when I say the powerful, I'm talking about our elected leaders and officials, those that are making decisions in our communities for us. We've always kind of been like the watchdog of them. So that's a huge factor there. But also really just give a voice to the voiceless. We're also members of our community. What is the community facing? What are those issues, and address that. So that's been very important. But times like now, where we have won a pandemic and we're also seeing an outcry nationally, but as well here locally, of these protests that are in response to the unfortunate death of George Floyd, but also Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. The list goes on. We know this, right? But so I think now it's extremely even more important because we're we're basically risking our lives a lot of the times to be on the front lines of these protests. No, we're not protesting. We are there covering it journalistically. Mm-hmm. But it's a huge risk, but it's also a responsibility to take you there, you know, give you that intimate behind the scenes look at what's going on, what's how things are changing, how things are unfolding. But also at the same time, we're talking to protesters. So we want to hear their story so we can share that with the world, you know, share that with communities so they know, okay, what do the protesters want? How are they feeling? You know, what's going through their heads? Why did they come out here, etc. So aside from that, we're basically professional storytellers, you know, and it's our responsibility to document. This is like a monumental time in our history. So at the same time, we're recording history by covering this. So I can't stress enough how important it is.
Yeah. Speaking of being there and behind the scenes and sharing with the people and being in the midst of like the protests, what is the atmosphere like? What is the atmosphere like when you're out there?
I'll tell you, for me, it was like an adrenaline rush. I don't even think I fully processed everything that I witnessed while I was out there, because it's so easy for me to just be like on autopilot. You know, I'm here, this is work. I'm just in my professional hat, you know, like I'm just like, I can't really see anything else. But I tell you, like throughout the whole day, it really was just a lot of unity and camaraderie and just community. You know, I haven't seen us come together like that probably in a while. Blame it on COVID if you must, but I don't know. But I've never seen so many people just come together. I mean, you have white, black, Hispanic, you know, like everything, young, old. I saw clergy out there, you know, praying. Like you can tell they still had their collars on. Like they were right after church, their services, and they were right out there in the scorching heat because it was like 90 degrees. So, you know, you have people out there just fearless. They didn't care. Some had masks on, some didn't. You know, a lot of people were just out there like, look, I don't care. Forget COVID. This is more important, you know. And I talked to some people that were just like, if I get corona, so be it. You know, like I'll get corona, because at the same time, that doesn't compare to what George Floyd experienced. You know, they're like, in their eyes, they're like, I can live with that. I'd much rather be here. Even if I don't fully understand, you know, if I'm not a person of color, even if I don't fully have this experience, I want to be here to support and be in solidarity. And throughout the day, you can just see people, even when things may have started to get out of line, it was like that sense of like, hey, chill, you know, like, oh, check your brother. It was just like that accountability. Like, hey, we're not doing this. This is what we're here for, you know? So I saw a lot of that. And that primarily came from the older generation telling like the younger people, like, hey, let's reminding them we're here about
put that
peace.
Back down.
You know, like basically like, yeah, calm down. Let's not forget, like, we're here for a reason. And, you know, we have a goal to accomplish. And so you just saw a lot of that. To me, it was like, you know, growing up in Baltimore, we kind of had that camaraderie. And I'm not saying that Tampa doesn't, but for me, that's what it reminded me of kind of just everyone being on one accord. And it was beautiful. So, I love to see it.
You saw the pictures out there and up in Baltimore, the protest that was going on. I mean, people was out there.
Yes. And I was actually a little shocked by how peaceful and calm it was, because I was still there in, what was that, 2015? When the riots, you know, transpired with Freddie Gray. I was still living there. I wasn't a professional journalist. I was still in college, but I mean, just the comparison, I kind of just was like, oh my goodness, wait till this gets, you know, to Baltimore. Like the streets are going to be crazy. So I was really proud that it wasn't like that. But I'll be honest with you, that was where I kind of had set the bar. And for me now, my professional life as a journalist, this is my first time covering the protests. So I didn't know really what to expect. But given what I, you know, had seen in Baltimore with the 2015 Freddie Gray riots and protests, you know, you kind of just hope for the best, assume the worst. So it was that type of thing. But I was really, really pleased for the most part.
That's good. I like that you said the older generation is basically leading the way and having that accountability.
And teaching. There were kids out there too.
Yeah, and just basically we have an agenda. Like they're out there with a set mind, set focus,
right.
Even in the midst of COVID-19. Like, this is what we need to do. This is what we're trying to do if we're trying to get about change. And even for the people who are not going out there, there's so much other things that we need to do. Whether you're tired, whether you feel like it, whether you think, it's other people's responsibility. Like, it's all of our responsibility. And this is what we need to do to bring about change. You and your colleagues, like you mentioned, had the opportunity to interview and hear from a lot of the different protesters that was out there.
Right.
What were their message? What were they saying?
I've heard all types of things, but honestly, the overarching theme was really peace. It was about unity. It was just about love and just happiness, and just basic things that people want that you would think shouldn't be too hard to accomplish. They really just wanted simple things, and just change ultimately. But if I had to choose two, I would say peace and change. But I tell you, I talked to, and again, people were coming from all over. I've talked to people that they don't live in Tampa. They're not from Tampa. There's two sisters that drove up from Fort Myers just to be here. Because they thought it was that important. There was two other twin sisters that were from Brooksville and Hernando County and Spring Hill. Like, they were just literally, that's what I say, like, people just coming together. They spent the whole day, like, they were just like, okay, I know I have to work this day, so it looks like we're both free on Saturday. We're going to take this time and go to Tampa. So I really I sensed just a general fatigue from a lot of protesters. When I talked to some people, and there was one girl in particular that she, like, whatever I do, I will never forget her, because she wouldn't even really talk. She was just at a loss for words, and she was completely speechless. I don't know. I don't think personally she just didn't want to talk to me. I think she literally just didn't have anything to say. She was holding a sign, and it said, "Why should I have to beg for my life?" Now, she is a Black woman. She was a person of color. And when I tell you, amid all the chants, everyone was chanting, the usual that you've been hearing: Black Lives Matter, and enough is enough, or no justice, no peace. Like, the many chants that have been circling. She was quiet the whole time. And I sat and watched her for like 20 minutes. And just tears were just pouring down her face. And she would wipe them. But she was holding her sign with two hands. She would just keep crying. And she would take a break, wipe some tears, and go right back at it. And I'm just like watching, like, man, I wonder if she's going to get into it. And she never did. And when I finally went and, approached her and I talked to her, I said, hey, introduced myself, of course. I said, would you mind telling me what's bringing you to tears in this moment, And she started to cry even harder. And she just was like, I can't even tell you I'm sorry. I can't. And she just kept saying, say it again.
Was she young?
I would say, if I guess, she probably was in her 20s. Yeah. But a lot of people, honestly, they weren't just protesting for the unfortunate deaths of George Floyd and the others. A lot of them were just so passionate, and they were there marching and protesting for themselves or for their brothers, or for their even mothers out there with their kids, protesting for their kids. So I sensed a general fatigue from a lot of the people that were there. Still very peaceful, but enough is enough is that the common theme that I was getting from everyone. I spoke to a couple people that literally, and I witnessed one interaction, and I was late to the conversation, but it was an interaction between a white girl, a Black girl, and a white officer from the Tampa Police Department. And that was I'm sorry, I witnessed two interactions, but that was the only one that kind of was just still. Like, when the other one, we were kind of marching and we were still walking, so I couldn't really stop and hear their conversation. But I stopped, and it was basically the black girl. She was talking to the officer, and the officer did approach her first. So that was the only officer that I saw kind of step out of line to come and talk to one of the protesters. And it seemed like it was a really good conversation, but her goal really was trying to understand the hurt and the frustration and, you know, cultivate change, like to start the conversation. So for me, I was like, okay, wow, that's interesting. Let's see, let's dissect this, you know, let's see what's going on here. Mm-hmm. So I really just kind of stood there and listened, taking notes, recording some. And afterwards, I talked to the black girl and I asked her, I said, hey, I came over kind of late, but can, you know, fill me in, what was that about? Like, yeah. And so she began to tell me, she was like, well, I was just telling her about an experience that I wanted questions on. She said, I was driving, I was by myself. And this girl, I'm 5'4". You see me, Johnny. I'm not tall at all. But this girl was maybe like all of 5 feet. So I wouldn't see her as a threat. But she's telling her story. And she's like, I was driving, I got pulled over, and I was on the phone with my mom, and I kept her on the phone with me. And she's like, I got out the car. It was 5 officers, she said, that pulled her over. And when I asked her, I said, hold on, before you go any further, what were you pulled over for? You know, did they tell you? She was like, initially they didn't, but it was because of her light was out. So she said they pulled her over, and it was 5 officers, and they told her to get out the car. She said even when they approached the car, they were banging on her windows, approaching. So she was very frightened, of course, as anyone would be. And she said she got out the car. She told them that she had her mother on the phone. She had on speakerphone. They told her to get out the car. And she said that 5 officers had waved guns at her, and she couldn't understand why. So I said, okay, so that's what you were talking about with her. So what did she tell you? Did she, you know, seem to try to understand? Like, what was that like? And she said, no, I really do respect her, and I appreciate her for even coming to me and approaching her. She was like, I didn't expect that. I appreciate it. But the answer that I heard with the officer basically was, you know, give me an opportunity to look into it, to understand what happened, you know. So it was a really good conversation. And then with her friend, I believe it was her friend, the white girl, she was kind of there as like moral support. And she was just there in solidarity and also talking to the officer. And one particular point that stood out to me was she mentioned her white privilege. And so it was interesting to see the discussion between her, a white, you know, citizen, and a white officer. So that seemed to be the only time where I felt like, okay, I don't think they're on the same page. But honestly, it was good to see the interaction between the white officer and the black resident, who was still very angry. So she said to me afterwards, she was like, yeah, I respect her. And she was like, but it's still F12. So, you know, you have that. That's what she said. I'm not blanking it out. That's literally what she said. So, you know, you have that. It's still like I appreciate it, but it's like still reservation. So it was interesting. I talked to a number of different people that said that. And again, general just overall fatigue and tiredness. People they just want change. That's it. And I think they are fearless and don't care what they have to do to get it. I saw some people literally just running, you know, when things started to get out of hand, a lot of people were running towards instead of away from, you know, like the smoke, the shots and stuff. Or some people had gotten shot by rubber bullets. Still unbothered, you know, so that's how tired people are. So
we want that change, so that conversations like the young lady had with that, it was a female officer, right?
Yes.
With that officer, it sounds like she didn't really feel like, have that sense of trust that she can really rely on the officer's words and things like that. So that's what we're chasing after. We want to be able to trust these officers and just get our justice, you know?
Yeah.
I saw a picture and I saw you writing about it a little bit. I saw some of your colleagues that looked like they were detained out there. I'm glad that didn't happen to you.
Thank you.
But what kind of effect did that have with your mentality and emotionally to see that happen to some of your peers?
Yeah, that was a lot. Mentally, emotionally. I mean, I was working that night when it happened, for one. I wasn't out there, but I was behind my computer taking feeds. And the whole time they've been really active. We kind of live tweeting, and they're sending in, we use Slack, which a lot of people are familiar with. So they're Slacking us every minute. Here's what's going on. I'm on this block, they're starting to throw things. Whatever the situation may be, they were updating us regularly. And these two reporters in particular were very adamant about that. So we don't hear from them for like 5 minutes or so. We're all like mentioning them like, hey, like, where are you? Are you there? And we weren't hearing anything back. So, of course, I'm not even a mom, but I felt like I was a mom in that instance. Like, I was just worried, like, oh my goodness. That waiting, that anticipation of waiting is just like, no one ever wants to feel that. And then it's one of your own. So, and I'm sure you're aware, and many people are as well, there's been kind of nationally a lot of journalists that are going through similar things. Some are getting arrested. Some are getting injured, while actually covering these protests. So it's one thing to see it, but then when it happens to someone, like I said, one of your own, and someone you know personally, and these reporters again we're all like very professional, and we're all very nice and calm, but these two reporters in particular, I'm like, they wouldn't even hurt a fly, So it just, for me, it really was like, wow. Like, personally, as if I'm not already Black, as if I'm not already a woman, but now I have to think about my profession, potentially being a target and being a threat. So I'm kind of one that's slow to process things. When it finally hit me, it hit me. Like, it took a mental toll, and I wasn't really sleeping that well all this week, to be honest with you. And anyone knows me that's not like me, because I can fall asleep anywhere. But it was tossing and turning a lot throughout the night, and it's hard for me to stay asleep. Like, I just anxious. Like, I'm just up for no reason when I know I'm tired, but I just can't sleep. So I think that's what a lot of people are feeling, just this heaviness. Mm-hmm. So I have a therapist, I've been utilizing her before this kind of got out of hand, but especially now, I've been calling on the wisdom and experience of some of my mentors who are amazing, career-wise, and also just being Black, just being a Black journalist. So I was able to kind of regain that momentum I needed and that strength, but it's hard, can't really vent as freely or as openly as you would want to, but doesn't mean that you don't still feel a way, you aren't still impacted by the things that you see, and the things that are unfolding in our world right now. So I wasn't honestly prepared for the mental effect that comes with it, but it's my job, so I wouldn't change anything about it at the same time.
Well, Monique, you're doing a great job. We support you, and we thank you for supporting, not only doing your job, but you're doing it out of the love and goodness of your heart and getting those stories and things like that, supporting your colleagues. So that's big. It takes a village. You're definitely part of the village and all of the others. So you guys are greatly appreciated. What's your last words? I know you can't, you can't say too much. But what's your last words to those who want to protest and just in general of what we're experiencing?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good question, because a lot of people have been DMing me and asking me, hey, in addition to be safe out there, people are like, hey, what are you seeing out there? Do you think I should go? Should I not? Is it safe? So I think a lot of people are in that stage of like, I want to do something. I want to, be safe, or I don't want to get shot, or, whatever. So I had a lot of people reach out to me about that. And really what the main thing I've been telling people is to, of course, be conscious of your surroundings, because things are happening so fast. And it can be hard to do that when you have hundreds of people around. So definitely go in groups. Definitely be conscientious of your surroundings. Obey orders, even if it's against what you're out there for. And I know that may not sound like, the pleasing thing or maybe what you want to do, but a lot of the times from what I've seen personally, and what I'm also seeing amongst my other colleagues, is things kind of quickly turn and kind of go from 0 to 100. And basically the Tampa Police Department they'll give you a warning and tell you to disperse. You have a couple of minutes, 3 to 5 minutes to disperse. That's kind of your time to, like they say, disperse. Mm-hmm. It's when you see a lot of people not take heed to that order is when things kind of start to unravel and get out of hand. And at that point, it's kind of too late. You're kind of already in the line of fire. So, that's not like a pun or anything, but, if anything, I would say if you're instructed to leave, please do so just for your safety. It's not worth risking your life. Make your message be heard. Everyone has that freedom, that right, but at the same time, just be careful. We still haven't really gotten an official definition for unlawful assembly, which typically is what they are calling it when they tell you to disperse. We haven't been able to pinpoint an exact definition of what that is. So until then, I'm just stressing for everyone to, even if it's against your will, even if you don't want to, just leave, because that's typically when things get a little out of hand. So.
That's good. Well, Monique, thanks again for tapping in and being a part of this live feed. We appreciate and take heed to what you've said, and continue to be safe. Continue to be safe and doing a great job. So thank you again.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And kudos to you. I love this forum that you've organized. I've been tuning in to everyone else. It's been really great.
Thank you. All right. You have a good night, Monique.
All right. You too.
All right, guys. That wraps up this whole event. So I appreciate everyone who has tuned in. This is Elevation Station. I guess my last words would be, continue to use your voice, continue to educate your peers, educate yourself. Let's make sure that we're doing all we can at a local level. That is so important. Let's make sure we do all we can as a local level, and continue to just exercise your rights and be loud, man, and pray. Continue to pray. All right, so I'll see if I can do something like this again. But in the meantime, thank you for tuning in to Elevation Station. Y'all have a great rest of y'all night and enjoy your week.